He told me himself that he committed the murder.
Okay.
And it was the murder of Cindy Berger.
On August 5th, 1993, 44-year-old Cynthia Berger, who lived in Port Hueneme in the coastal region of Ventura County, was not only killed, but also physically assaulted mercilessly. As if that was not enough, the perpetrator burned down her house in the hopes of leaving no evidence behind. His plan worked, and for over a decade the case remained unsolved. What initially seemed like a tragic incident soon unraveled into a web of betrayal, revenge, and grievances. As we dive into the details of this case, it begs the question, who could have done such a heinous act, and why?
I really do want you guys to find this out. I mean, I'm a good, law-abiding citizen, and I can't believe that I've had this information for so long.
When tragedy struck, not much is known about Cynthia Berger, age 44. Initially, her death was presumed to be the result of an accident. Authorities believe she perished from smoke inhalation in a fire. However, upon further investigation, it was discovered that she had been physically assaulted and strangled to death. At around 3:30 a.m. on August 5, 1993, Cynthia's neighbor noticed her garage door was open, but did not think anything was out of the ordinary. Approximately 2 hours later, another neighbor woke to the bitter scent of smoke coming from Cynthia's condo. A close look showed that the condo was engulfed in flames, with the fire department being called. Police had arrived first, but were hindered by thick smoke when attempting to enter the residence. After the fire had been doused and the smoke had cleared, authorities were faced with a grim sight. Cynthia's lifeless body was found in a half-filled bathtub, filled with a mixture of bleach and other chemicals on the floor. During the investigation, police found no signs of forced entry, but noted that the condo's smoke detectors had been disabled. Officers also found that Cynthia's purse containing her wallet and credit cards was suspiciously missing. Ventura County's chief medical examiner, Dr. Ronald O'Halloran, conducted an autopsy later that day. He observed petechial hemorrhages, which are tiny brownish red spots caused due to bleeding under the skin. This was shocking, as it indicated that Cynthia had been asphyxiated. The hemorrhages were found on Cynthia's face and eyelids, along with abrasions under her chin, bruising on her neck, and a fractured hyoid bone, all signs consistent with manual strangulation. Dr. O'Halloran also found evidence of physical assault, including lacerations and bruising in Cynthia's area. Subsequent investigations, including a fire reconstruction analysis 2 weeks later, confirmed the fire's intentional nature, suggesting arson as the cause. It was evident from the state of the crime scene that the culprit tried to destroy all DNA evidence. However, the culprit did not realize that the fire may have destroyed all the evidence from the scene, but it could not destroy the evidence that was inside Cynthia's body. Investigators had found fluid that had belonged to her assaulter. The discovery of the bodily fluids in the victim's body had brought a ray of hope to the investigation. However, this ray quickly disappeared when the cops couldn't find a match to the DNA. The investigation into Cynthia Berger's death quickly went cold and remained unresolved for 7 years, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the case. On August 29, 2000, Detective Matt Harville from the Ventura Police Department received an anonymous phone call.
As a routine, I guess you'd call, or just a normal practice, I have a tape recorder on my desk with a tape loaded in it, hooked up to the telephone, just in case I do get that big phone call.
On the other end of the phone, this mysterious caller claimed to know the identity of the man who killed Cynthia Berger: Michael Schultz.
His name is Michael Schultz. He told me himself that he committed the murder.
Okay.
And it was the murder of Cindy Berger.
With the name and harrowing details of the crime, the detective went through old files, finding the case. Promptly, he reached out to Detective Dennis Fitzgerald, who had been in charge of the case back in 1993. Almost immediately, Fitzgerald knew that Michael Schultz had to be their killer, as the information provided by the caller was never made public, and only the killer, or someone who he confided in, could have known.
He told me that he put her in the downstairs bathroom in bleach and some other chemicals so that they couldn't trace the DNA.
In a search for Schultz, the detectives found that he was already serving time in prison on the charges of a string of burglaries and assaulting a police officer since 1996, and was mere 2 months away from parole. During the time of the murder, Schultz was a known criminal, but was not suspected to have any involvement in Cynthia's murder. Additionally, investigators found that Schultz had a fiancée, Teresa Mooney. In 1999, 3 years into his prison sentence, and 6 years after Cynthia's death, Schultz was transferred to a low-security fire camp. By August of that year, Schultz and Mooney were engaged, anticipating his imminent release. Looking into the record of Schultz, investigators found another case with disturbing similarities with Cynthia Berger's. In June 1992, Schultz had trespassed into another girl's apartment in the Calabasas area of Los Angeles at around 4 a.m., entering her apartment through the balcony. The woman, hearing the disturbance, had armed herself with a kitchen knife, prompting Schultz to flee. However, he didn't even make it more than a block before he was caught. This incident mirrored the modus operandi observed in subsequent crimes, further implicating Schultz as a suspect. On September 22, 2000, Detective Fitzgerald visited Schultz unexpectedly in California State Prison, searching his cell for clues. Among Schultz's belongings, Fitzgerald found a personal telephone book containing an address near Cynthia's residence. He discovered that Schultz had been residing close to Berger's home at the time of the crime, providing him ample opportunity to observe her. He believed that Schultz stalked Cynthia, given her solitary living situation and the layout of her condo, which lacked privacy. With the evidence piling up against Schultz, the suspicions of Detective Fitzgerald were confirmed on August 4, 2000. In a genetic test conducted by forensic scientist Michael Paragian, the sample for Cynthia's corpse and DNA from Schultz turned out to be a perfect match.
The numbers were 1 times 10 to the 18th, which is 1 followed by 18 zeros. We actually have a policy here where we'll identify that person if it's past 1 times 10 to the 12th, basically.
The detectives finally had their man. On January 31, 2003, Schultz was called to the stand at the Ventura County Supreme Court. The jury only took 30 minutes to deliver a guilty verdict. In a surprising twist, the mysterious caller who breathed life into this cold case turned out to be Schultz's now ex-fiancée, Teresa Mooney. Back in 1999, when Schultz was serving time for a string of burglaries and assaulting an officer, Schultz had confessed to Teresa that he was the one responsible for the assault and murder of Cynthia Berger. Teresa had confided in her daughter about Michael Schultz's confession. Prompted by her daughter's insistence, Teresa had anonymously called the City of Ventura Police Department to report the information and eventually testified against Schultz. He had recounted to Teresa on how he had stumbled upon Cynthia's open garage early in the morning, entered her residence intending to steal, and found Cynthia on her bed. Schultz claimed to have physically assaulted her, stating that she did not resist but scratched him at one point. He admitted to strangling Cynthia and placing her body in the bathtub, and filled it with water and chemicals to erase DNA evidence. During his sentencing, Schultz confessed it was an act of revenge against her family back in 1942 for the betrayal of Nazi saboteurs executed during World War II. He asserted that his actions were aimed at making the Berger family suffer for the betrayal his own family endured when a relative of Cynthia betrayed 6 Nazi soldiers to the U.S. authorities. Schultz had said, "The rage and paranoid delusions I was having back then, combined with all the methamphetamines in my system, have made me believe the only way to avenge the executed soldiers was through what Mr. Berger held dearest to him, his daughter." Notably, Schultz said that the German soldier who betrayed his comrades was named Ernest Berger. However, the Berger family revealed that nobody in their lineage had any connection to this soldier. Schultz had murdered an innocent girl who had no connection to his actual target. This revelation added another layer of trauma to the Berger family, with the realization that Cynthia suffered hell with no cause whatsoever. Finally, with an overwhelming amount of evidence, Teresa Mooney's testimony and his own eventual confession, Michael Schultz was sentenced to death by lethal injection on February 26, 2003. Amidst the chaos and confusion, Cynthia Berger's family sits in stunned silence, grappling with the enormity of Schultz's accusations. Still shocked by Schultz's confession, they had expressed relief at the sentencing. The trial shed light on the complexities of the criminal justice system and underscored the emotional toll on victims' families. Despite Schultz's attempt to rationalize his actions, justice was served with his death sentence.